Hey, so I think I'm live. So I'm Jeff. I'm with Eden Learning. That's kind of the company I started. I've been tutoring for over 10 years now, and I originally got a perfect score on the old SAT, but I also took the new SAT to see that I can get a perfect score on that as well. So I've been posting on Reddit and just helping some people out, and a lot of people suggested we have some workshops so we can kind of go over some common issues and some aspects of the test so you guys can go ahead and get ready for that March 10th test. So today I'm going to primarily be talking about the writing section. I did reading last time, so if you're interested in that, maybe take a look at that. If you have any questions, even if it's not in the writing section, feel free to drop a comment in the chat or maybe post it on the Reddit thread. I'll be checking both periodically, so we can go ahead and answer some of those. So even if you feel like it's a little off topic, don't feel bad. Just go ahead and post it, and I'll make sure to talk to you about it. So I think I'm gonna wait for a few people to get on. I think some are gonna be coming on a little bit late. So yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to start me off with something. Otherwise, I might wait a little bit and we'll get started. So actually, let me get a little bit into what a Reddit user, Final Push, said. He said that since the test is coming up so quick, maybe it'd be helpful to learn how to understand the concepts rather than the concepts themselves. I think that's a completely valid point. Hopefully, we can do a little bit of both today. So, with the writing section, especially, a big portion of it is understanding kind of like the criteria behind the questions. So, if we go ahead and take a look at some of the questions, you'll notice that it's not really a question. I'm sure if you've taken a practice test, you've gone over this a bunch of times, but they pretty much just give you answer choices and a few times give you a physical question, right? Explicit question. So the important part in the writing section is understanding really what are you looking for? What is the criteria of what makes an answer good versus what makes the answer incorrect? So there's still a lot of different question types. You can kind of tell by the answer choices what is happening. So, for example, in number one, I see the choices are between outdo, defeat, outperform, outweigh. So it's not anything about grammar, it's not anything about sentence structure or verb tense or something like that. Really, the criteria that is implicitly being asked is can I pick the right word in context? So for my criteria with these words in context is really, um, does it follow the style consistent with the rest of the passage? So if the rest of the passage is very professional, I'm not going to pick anything really casual. Other things to take note of is just tone. Is it too extreme, too dramatic? And so we want to kind of see what fits the tone here. So big thing we're looking out for is the connotation of our answer choices. That's just an example of kind of like what we're doing here so we can kind of understand what we're doing wrong. So when you're taking these practice tests, you're not just studying an individual question, but you're trying to attack the concept at hand and you're trying to understand trends in the issues that you're making. That way you can practice a lot more efficiently rather than, doing a million practice tests and hoping for a great result. So that's kind of the core strategy is really understanding your mistakes and not why you got a specific question wrong, but what is that criteria behind the question that they're looking for. So in something like number three, I see the answer choices are in between camp with this apostrophe and yeah, that's pretty much, and the verb tense, right? So first off, I know apostrophe. So the criteria they're asking is a possessive case necessary here. So you can go ahead and figure that out. But also the difference between can pollute, could have polluted, has polluted. That's verb tense, right? So I know that they're asking me about verb tense. So I'm going to take a very specific strategy in that and picking the same consistent verb tense. So what I want to do in those kind of questions is, look around the rest of the paragraph to see any other verbs and what tenses they're in. So I'm going to just talk some general strategy before I get into everything. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to drop it in the chat so I can engage with you guys a little more and not just lecturing at you. So some general strategy, and I'll be typing up some notes as we go. So general strategy. Don't read the whole passage. If you'll notice, you have 44 questions and only 35 minutes. So you have about 45 seconds per question. So it really doesn't make sense to read the whole passage. Again, this is not the reading section, it's the writing section. So in doing so, you need to understand actually somewhat of the question types, because if you don't know when you need to read, you might mess up. So this comes with understanding the question types. So with certain questions, you're going to have to read a little more in depth. Other questions, I might only have to read a sentence or two. So that's just some general strategy there. What I said before is understand the criteria of what makes an answer correct. So you're not only answering why something is wrong, but why something is also correct. So then you have examples, right? So maybe it's a verb tense, maybe it's parallelism or sentence structure, could be conciseness. There's a lot of examples. Pronoun agreement, sentence relationship. So let me make this a little bit smaller so I can fit a few more things here. So there's a lot of examples, but here are just a few, right? So understanding the criteria is really essential to doing well in the writing, and it also helps with, this is the big thing, is it helps with your consistency. So you should not be missing too many questions apart from test to test, right? So if I'm missing 5 on one practice test, I shouldn't randomly be missing 7 or 10 on another one, because ultimately that shows me that I'm not strategically approaching the questions. I'm more operating off intuition. So don't operate off your intuition. And then stick with a reliable strategy. So with the strategic approach. So that's going to really help you reduce that variance between your tests. So yeah, and DaxP Gamers just asked if I could post a doc after. It's going to be hard for me to post the doc on YouTube because I don't think they really take that form. So if you sign up for our email newsletter on our website, I'll go ahead and send that to you. That's just a way for me to get your information so I can give it to you. I don't really know a different way to do that. So I'm going to type some notes here and I'll send it to whoever gives me their email. So you should be able to find the email newsletter sign up on our website, or my website. It's www.edenlearningscenter.com. So I'm going to type a few things out, and yeah, so don't feel like you have to write everything down. If you just give me your information, I'll send it over to you. Okay, so let's see, what else was I talking about? General strategy. So I would say process of elimination is also very useful. It's useful throughout the test, but with the writing, there's usually a very distinct reason why an answer choice is wrong. That kind of follows the same idea of understanding why a question is right. So this is just some general strategy. There's more to it, but I don't want to get too much into everything. I'll kind of talk about things as I go. Another thing I just thought about was titles are important, and they give you the main idea typically, so you can skim. So you don't have to read the whole passage again. Cool. So that's one big thing here, and I'm going to talk about the writing section, but we might get into the essay as well, depending if that's something that people are interested in. I know the essay is optional now, so we might not get too crazy in depth with that. So cool. That's just some general strategy. Again, if you have any questions, please, it helps me kind of think through what's important to you guys, and I'm not just kind of talking about a bunch of random things. So see if you can leave any questions in the comments. That will help me to be as useful as possible with you guys. Okay, so let's go and take a look at the passage. So I'm working off College Board Test 1, just to keep consistent. It's probably one that people have done a lot of, so that helps. So let's talk about the most important questions. And why I call these the most important questions is because they make up roughly maybe 25% of the test. So if you can nail these down, you're setting yourself up to succeed. So make sure you really understand these concepts. If you're going to start anywhere, start here, because that's going to give you a lot of points to pick up, and you only have to learn a few concepts for this. So I analyze a bunch of SAT tests. I kind of break it down by question type, and that way I can kind of tell you, you know, these 3-4 concepts, they're going to make up a big part of the test. So some of these questions, let's talk about it. So one is transitions, or the probably more appropriate word is conjunctive adverbs. So let me find a question on this test that represents this, and you'll see a bunch of these. Like I said, it makes up a big portion of the test. So something like number 9, you see it says you got a bunch of these transition words. You have also, in other words, therefore, for instance. These are all what we call conjunctive adverbs. So you don't need to know the really grammar specific term for it. It's not a writing class, as long as you know what to do. So with these, what you really want to analyze is first read the sentence before the question. This is a very common mistake. People just see the number 9 and they don't even read anything before, and they just go straight to the question. But you have to read the sentence before the question, because that's what you're going to compare this to. So what I want to do next is I want to now basically pluck the main idea of the 2 sentences and understand what relationship they have. So the options you pretty much have for relationships are, they're going to be similar. Let me just say agree, disagree, cause and effect relationship, or it can be a time thing. So these are what we use conjunctive adverbs for. So something like, in other words, therefore, or it can be even like an example or something like that. Also, you know, also is going to be agreeing. It's going to continue on with something. In other words, it's just a restatement, right? So it could be a restatement as well. These are some of the more common relationships. Therefore, that's that cause and effect. For instance, that's an example, right? So if you can understand these relationships, you should do super well in these transition questions. It's really not hard at all. I could actually just go send you to Google right now. I say list of conjunctive adverbs, and you can kind of study these. So if I go and do that, I'll just pick whatever the first one is, and I'm pretty sure this will be useful. So yeah, so if you can kind of see, there's a list of these. You can study them. This one is a little less exhaustive. I might pick a different link, but there's not one that I would say is SAT specific. You just pick any of these and it will help you out. So you might just have to look around a little bit and find something that's good, but there's plenty of these lists out there. So you try to find one that gives you a lot of words. So even though I look at the images, look, there's a ton of words right here. So just study some of these. Maybe try to categorize them into what relationship they have. So understand the relationship. So let's do number 9 as an example, just so you can kind of see what I'm doing. So like I said, I'm going to read the sentence before the question. So I'm going to start all the way up here, right? So nutritionists consider Greek yogurt to be a healthy food. It is an excellent source of calcium and protein, serves as a digestive aid, and contains few calories in its unsweetened, low, and non-fat forms. Greek yogurt is slightly lower in sugar and carbohydrates than conventional yogurt is. So I read a little too far ahead, but that did give me some perspective. So what are we talking about? Greek yogurt is slightly lower in sugar and carbohydrates. So Greek yogurt is healthier. It's probably one of the benefits, right? So now we have the next sentence. Because it is more concentrated, Greek yogurt contains slightly more protein per serving, thereby helping people stay satiated for longer periods of time. So the first sentence, it says Greek yogurt is healthy, and the second sentence is Greek yogurt has more protein. It helps people stay satiated or fulfilled or whatever one of those words is. So it keeps people more satisfied for longer. So we can see that these two things are agreeing here. So we're going to pick a word that agrees, which is just going to be, in this case, number 9, it's just going to be also, right? So that's the only transition word here that agrees, and that's how you do these problems. They're really easy. I know some people said that they have some trouble with it, but studying just the relationship between the words is fine. Again, if you're struggling with reading comprehension, you might have a few issues, but it should be easy to pluck the main idea of what these sentences are. So don't worry about every detail of what the sentences are saying, but rather try to focus on just what is the main substance of it. So that's one of your biggest questions. There's always going to be maybe like 5 of those questions on the test, maybe a little less, but it's usually in between 4 to 6, I would say 4 to 6 questions on the test. And so those should be 40 to 50 points that are easy to pick up. So again, let me know if you have any questions. I'm just running through kind of what I think is important and some general strategies, but I love to really be more specific and give you guys more personalized advice. So if you can just let me know what's helpful for you, that'd be great. So another important question that we're going to talk about is what was I thinking? It's going to be your semicolon, colon, comma, dash. So you're going to get a lot of these questions where one of your answer choices is going to have a semicolon, one will have a colon, comma, or dash, or maybe just no punctuation at all. So this is very easy because, again, these are going to be like 5 questions, maybe, again, 3 to 5. They usually kind of fluctuate a little bit, but the variance is not too high. So you're going to get around 3 to 5 questions of these. You should not miss these because you know it's going to come up. You know what rules you need to follow. So for semicolon, you need to know that it's 2 independent clauses. So it's going to join 2 independent clauses. So independent clauses are sentences or phrases that can stand alone, right? So the easiest thing to do there is, just read each portion and see if it makes sense as a sentence. If both sides of the sentence before and after the semicolon both work on their own, then you're going to use a semicolon, right? So colon, okay, so with colon, we're going to do a couple things, right? So typically, this is to introduce a list, but it must be an independent clause, an independent clause beforehand. So as an example, you might say, let me think of something. I'm Jeff. So Jeff likes physical activities. So this is a standalone. And then I can say, running, playing basketball, and hiking. So notice that it's going to be an independent clause before, and then it also, it has to be an independent clause before that colon. So Jeff likes physical activities can be a sentence in its own. So that's when you're going to use a colon primarily. Another case, which is not going to happen as much since you're probably going to use a dash. It's just usually a, let's say, restatement or definition. So this is another case where you can use a colon. This is a less popular use of it, and this one shows up a little less on the test. So don't worry about this one as much. So restatement or definition. So I can say, let me think of something. Jeff's writing includes a lot of alliteration, repetition, of consonants at the beginning of each word. So right here, it's a definition or a restatement of what alliteration is. If a colon is used in this scenario, it has to follow, the thing that you're describing has to be right before it. You don't want to have anything separated. So this is a big thing that comes up. Dashes, let's talk about dashes. So dashes are going to be used when interrupting a sentence primarily, or ending a sentence with additional unnecessary information. So something like this. Jeff went to Cerritos High School, and then I kind of want to separate it with a school in Southern California. So it's just kind of like a interrupting phrase that doesn't need to be there. So that's what this dash is going to be used for. And let's say like for 4 years. So that's an example of when I would use a dash. So with commas, there's going to be a ton of rules. So I don't want to give you an exhaustive list because obviously commas can be used a lot of times. But one of the big things is you want to know appositives, which is restatement of something. So you need commas before and after. So for appositives, sorry, I'm trying to figure out how to format this. I'm kind of doing this on the fly. So you might have Jeff, an SAT tutor, enjoys helping students, something like that. So I'm restating who Jeff is. Jeff is an SAT tutor. I'm using a comma before and after. If you guys have done some of these grammar rules, this might be old news, but I'm just trying to give some people who haven't maybe started on those books or studied anything yet something to work off of. But remember, I'm trying to introduce what are the big, most important questions. It's going to be pretty much these two. So you really want to make sure you're nailing these things down. And then another use you probably want to do, if it's one dependent, and one independent clause. So this is another way you would use commas. Again, there's a lot more rules. I don't want to go into every single thing, but hopefully this is useful because, again, if you're missing any of these question types, sit down and study the concepts because, yeah, you should never miss these. They're very basic concepts, and they're going to come up over and over and again. They're going to look exactly the same on every test. So these should be free 50 points you're picking up, And if you nail both of these concepts, it can be almost 100 points. So make sure you don't miss any of these, and that's going to give you that foundation to getting a 400 on the writing section, which is the perfect score. Another important question type is your adding and deletion questions. So these will come up a lot. So actually, before I get into that, let me go back and do one of those comma, colon, semicolon ones. So that one is somewhat like that, but let me find a good one. So again, I probably won't have to go too far to find some of these because they're going to be pretty common, but I'm not sure where they are in this test. So cut me a little bit of slack. Okay, so like number 32. This is one of those very, very, very stereotypical questions. So I'm trying to understand exactly what I'm going to use. A colon, comma, semicolon, or nothing here. So it says over time, and with these, I'm not reading more than just the sentence because it's unnecessary. I don't need to know what the meaning of everything is. All I need to know is whether it's independent or dependent clause, whether it's setting up a list or something like that. So over time, I've gotten to know several of my co-working colleagues, another website developer, a graphic designer, a freelance writer, and several mobile app coders. So first off, we recognize that it is a list. So now we're probably going to eliminate B and C right off the bat. So now I'm in between A and D, because when I have a list, I don't always need to use colon. Obviously, you don't see that all the time. So let's try to understand what we're going to use here. And what you have to know is, again, is it an independent or a dependent clause coming before? So in this case, over time, I've gotten to know several of my co-working colleagues. That's an independent clause. So I'm going to go ahead and pick A, no change. So let's move on. And Jasper asked best strategy for dealing with diction and word choice questions. So I'm going to take a little side. I'm going to divert from what I was doing real fast, and let me answer Jasper's questions. So let's do these diction and word choice questions. So I kind of talked about this a little bit in the beginning. So your criteria is really going to be tone and style. So tone, style, let's say tone, style, and just definition. I know that sounds very cliche, but that's another consideration. So with tone and style, some things you want to avoid, right? So avoid extreme answers. You don't want to pick usually something like desolation or destruction, something like really dramatic, because again, the author's probably not going to be that extreme. Those are almost always the wrong answers. You want to understand scope. So what I mean by that is it general or is it specific? So you want to kind of follow that scope. General strategy before, you probably want to find the main idea. Find main idea of the paragraph, because that's usually going to help you understand, again, the tone, the style, and other things like that. So find the main idea of the paragraph, where I'm going to probably look in the topic sentence. So topic sentence is really going to give me that. For tone and style, so tone, look at connotation. So part of this is just knowing some vocab. Unfortunately, there's no workaround around that. If you don't know the words, then you'll be out of luck. But I mean, with the SAT now, everything's in context. Like, you don't need to know a lot. Look at connotation, and that goes again with avoiding extreme answers. One thing I would really be careful of is beware of a transition or contrast word right before the question. So what they like to do sometimes, which is a very, very common trap, is maybe the whole sentence is something good, and then there's a but and the underline portion, and then it turns into something bad, and then you're thinking, oh, pick a good word, but you got to make sure you're reading the whole thing. So make sure you just read the whole sentence. That's a very stupid trick, so make sure you don't fall for something like that. Style, it's usually, is it casual? So sometimes they'll throw a passage that they try to relate, to teenagers. So it might be about texting or memes or internet, something like that. So if it's something like that, then yeah, stick with casual words. If it's about memes, then just, do that, right? Pick very memey words. If it's professional, then pick something that's a little more professional, a word that fits that. So standard is kind of like in between. It's not like super high class language, flowery language, but it's something that just you would normally talk about, but not with your friends, just like for your English homework, right? So that's a big thing. Somebody asked if I'm going to post a sheet, so I'm going to give you the link. So So again, if you go to our website, I just posted in the chat. Okay. It's not letting me post a link, unfortunately, okay? So if you want this, then head to our website and sign up for the newsletter. If you're having trouble finding where to sign up for the newsletter, then just drop your email in the YouTube chat. I'll kind of go back and I'll email it to you. Again, I just need your information so I can send it to you because I can't post this on YouTube. So I just want to send it to you. And I don't want to just post it like on my website because it's not going to make sense if you're not really, following along with me. So make sure you just sign up on the website. And if you can't find it, then maybe drop it in the YouTube. I might miss it if it's in the YouTube since it's not automated. So again, if you can find it, go to the website. So I'll send all of this to you guys. So I hope that answered your question, Jasper. This is kind of the big things that I'm considering. Let me go ahead and do one of them for you just so you can kind of understand. So, I mean, like number 33, I'm already here. Actually, this is kind of like a vocab question, right? So how I can identify that is I know they all relatively mean the same things, but they're completely different words. So I know that this is probably a vocab kind of question. So let's look at this. So it says, even those of us who work in disparate fields are able to share advice and help each other brainstorm. In fact, it's the diversity of their talents and experiences that makes my co-working colleagues so valuable. So it looks like they're talking pretty professionally, but he's saying like words like. You see how I see like over here? He's not like super professional. This is not flowery language. So I would say this fits more in the style of, the casual. Or not the casual, the standard, right? It's that middle ground. Sorry. All right, so he did use things like disparate, right? So there are some big words here. He's not like completely just using dumb words. So I'm somewhere in the middle, right? So I want to pick something that kind of matches that tone. So something very standard is just A, share advice, no change. Something like B, give some wisdom. Again, it's a little unnatural. It's a little too professional and formal for what he's talking about. He's just kind of giving a review, right? Proclaim our opinions. Again, proclaim, it kind of sounds like you're like yelling almost, right? And then or even just very loud. So don't pick proclaim, right? Opine, again, it's too professional, it's too formal. There's not that much flowery language here, so I'm not going to pick something like opine. So yeah, I'll send the link to you guys again. Just you'll get your hands on it. I'll try to make it a little easier and accessible to you guys. So again, I just don't want to post it everywhere. Not because I'm like concerned that I have some super secret sauce, but it just doesn't make that much sense. So if I post this on my website or somewhere else, it's just kind of like a lot of people will just not understand. So it's more for you guys that are tuning in. I mean, once you get it, feel free to share it with some of your friends, but I'm not like overly protective about it. So yeah, B just misses the definition again too, right? They're just kind of talking amongst themselves, right? They're sharing and they're helping each other brainstorm. So that's another key word, right? So right, Jasper. So you're getting the hang of this, right? So help each other brainstorm. So we're not giving wisdom. And again, giving wisdom almost sounds like that top down, like someone is superior than the other. And that's not really what's happening here. They're just co-workers and they're colleagues, right? So that's like a diction question. So let me go back. So again, if you have questions, thanks for the question, Jasper. It helped me understand what's important to you guys. So keep sending me some questions. And yeah, that link that Jay posted in the chat, that's the right link. So just follow that one. So let me continue with some of these most important questions. So I'll just call this the 3 most important questions because it's really these 3 question types. So with these adding and deletion questions, your criteria is going to be relevancy. Oh my gosh, I can't spell, sorry. Let's just say relevance. Relevance. Alright, I'm having some serious trouble today, guys. Criteria is going to be relevance. It's going to be repetitious. So is it repetitious? And what else? It's primarily those 2 things, but I think there's one more thing. Give me a sec to think about it. But relevance, repetition. I would also say, like, sometimes pronouns, right? If there's pronouns that come out of nowhere, I wouldn't really pick something like that. So if it's relevant, you know, keep it. If it's not relevant, then get rid of it, right? So don't add it or delete it, right? So to do this, what you really want to do is find the main idea. So this will comes from the title or topic sentence. So you don't want to read the whole paragraph in depth because, again, you have 45 seconds. You don't want to get into every single thing. Just try to find the main idea as quick as you can. So just look at the topic sentence or the title. You'll find it pretty quickly. So if it's repetitious, so if it's repetitious, obviously get rid of it. If it's not, then keep it. Then keep it, right? Or add it. So another thing to consider with this is scope, right? So if it could be like somewhat on topic, but it can still be like completely irrelevant. So just make sure, if I'm talking about, you know, like example, coworkers here, make sure if it's that scope. So let me go do an example with you guys, and you can kind of see what it looks like. And all right, so all these questions are right here. So the writer wants to add the following sentence to the paragraph. After filling out a simple registration form and taking a quick tour of the facility, I took a seat at the table and got right to work on my... sorry, this is placement. I misread that. I'm rushing. So those organization questions, again, there's a different strategy for those. Let me see if I can find, like, number 42. Here we go. At this point, the writer is considering adding the following sentence. The ancient Greek philosopher Plato, for example, wrote many of his works in the form of dialogues. And okay, put a space before and after the dot in the link. Okay, the one that Jay sent is fine. So again, if you're still looking to how to get this document, it's just www.edenlearningcenter.com. So if you can't find it, then it should be, I think it's in the description. Let me see. Yeah, so it's in the description. Just follow the link. It shouldn't be that hard, guys. You guys are taking the SAT. Come on. Again, if it's really, really that difficult for you, then just drop your email maybe in the comments. That way I can just find it there. And cool. So let's go back to 42. So it says the ancient Greek philosopher Plato, for example, wrote many of his works in the form of dialogue. So I'm wondering if this is about dialogues, probably, right? So I'm going to read the whole thing. So it said, let me look at the title, because like I said, the title is very important. It says, The Consolations of Philosophy. So it's probably about, you know, something about the benefits of philosophy. So when I head back down, I'm going to look at the topic sentence. These days, many students majoring in philosophy have no intention of becoming philosophers. Instead, they plan to apply those skills to other disciplines. Law and business specifically benefit from a complicated blah, 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 right? So the main idea here, it's very clearly, you know, philosophy is useful even if you're not going to be a philosopher. So let's see. Plato obviously wrote this is just a specific philosopher, but that's not the main idea here. So we're gonna pick no, right? So we're in between C and D. So no, because it blurs the paragraph's focus by introducing a new idea. No, because it undermines the passage. So it's not taking away from the argument. Again, it's just off topic. So I'm going to pick C. That's your answer. So these should be pretty easy. Okay. I should have thought this through. You guys are having a really hard time with getting this thing. So, you know what? Just send me an email. Send an email to us. This is my work email. So maybe you can just send me an email and I'll get your information. So okay, so I just posted my work email in the comments. This is really causing you a lot of trouble. I want you to pay attention, so don't worry, you'll get this. Just we'll figure it out. So send me an email there and just say, hey, I want the notes from today. And maybe give me your name just so, you know, we can keep it a little more personable and I'm not just some random dude on the internet. Okay, so that's really the 3 biggest questions, and that's how you kind of approach those. So if you do that, you should be getting, you know, this is 100 to 150 points. So you can nail those down, you'll be fine, you know. So it can be a lot, but sometimes it's not yet. Okay, so I got your email. I'll remember to give it to you, so don't worry about it. If you don't get it, then try to send me a message on Reddit. I'm sure you got my Reddit, so cool. Any other questions about just the writing section? Otherwise, I might get a little bit into the essay if that's interesting to anybody. So hopefully you guys can tell me something that's important to you. So I'm gonna wait around a little bit, see if anyone has any specific questions that you guys want me to answer. How do I know to distinguish between the 2 yes/no questions? So, yeah, so doing the yes/no questions, you know, so after you break it down to yes or no, based off what I said here about the relevancy and the repetitiousness and maybe the pronoun, sometimes they throw in a pronoun and it's just kind of like, if you have no antecedent, it doesn't make any sense. But after you do that, you should be able to get yes or no. At that point, you have to understand what. So what I would do at that point is, what is the core? Okay, so let me type this out. So once you get yes or no, try to figure out the main idea of the sentence that is added / deleted and understand the relationship. So like in 42, right? Undermines, if you know undermines, that's like, you know, completely against, you know, the argument. But that's not what's happening here, because Plato is just a random example. So again, it has to do with those relationships that I'm talking about in my questions over here. So just try to see if it's something like this, and you'll be able to figure it out pretty quick. Yeah, and D doesn't make sense. Just like Jasper said. Jasper, you got this. You should be doing your own workshop, man. Okay. Jasper asks, if you read the whole passage and you finish with 1 minute left, is there any downsides? One thing is the time, right? So if you're only with 1 minute left, you're cutting it close. So I would say timing is just one big issue. Another thing is maybe you might overthink questions, especially if you're really smart. You might get just too much into it that you don't need to. I do agree that not reading the whole passage and doing it this way, it takes some practice and it takes some trust. That you need to believe that you can get these questions right without reading the whole passage. So it kind of takes a leap of faith, just like, you know, like if you're playing basketball, right? If I have a shot, I used to shoot with 2 hands. I still kind of do a little bit, but you know, that has a very low ceiling. If I shoot with 2 hands, there's going to be some inconsistencies with my shot, right? So, but if I change forms, you know, try to do the 1-hand shot, then, you know, at the beginning, I might suck more at it than if I just shot with 2 hands, because I was so used to doing it with 2 hands. But in the end, it's going to give me a higher ceiling. It's going to make my shot more consistent. So that's the same thing that we're doing here. So, you know, once you get the practice, not reading the whole passage, you're going to have a higher ceiling. You're going to be more consistent. You're not going to overthink your answers, and you're also not going to doubt yourself. So a lot of the issues with the writing is, you know, you kind of doubt yourself. You read the sentence, you plug in the answers, you read it over and over again, but that's not a reliable strategy. It was what I said. Don't rely on intuition, you know. I said don't rely on intuition. You need to have a strategic approach, and that's going to reduce the variance between your tests. You don't want an off day to mess you up. I would say I don't even look at the passage until a question directs me to. So your random DVR, I don't know how to say your name, random DVR, but I don't even look at the passage until a question forces me to. And those questions that force me to are typically going to be, you know, those organization questions and sometimes these adding and deleting questions. So let me kind of like pretend I was doing a couple questions, and I'll tell you my thought process, and maybe that will give you an idea. Jasper, I would say, try it out at first, at least. You do need to understand question types. So if you're not understanding what a question is asking of you, then not reading the passage may have a worse effect on your score. But try it out first. Try to understand the criteria behind some of the questions and what's necessary for each of them. So I'll start at the beginning, and I'll just do like a 1-minute sampler of what I would do. And so I don't even look at the paragraph yet. I'm not even looking at this first page. So once I'll do like a 1-minute sampler. So if you can, if you have some time, you're gonna put in a lot of work before the test. Try switching up your strategy. It might help you out. It might leave you with 5 or 10 minutes left if you get really good, and then you can kind of check some of the other answers you were having some trouble with. So I don't even read this passage. So number 1, I know it's a verb tense, or it's a tone vocab kind of question, right? So with that, what I do need to know is the overall style. So I'm just going to skim really quickly what kind of words are going on, right? So with something in the beginning, I know it's not going to be too hard, so I might just go straight to the sentence first and see if anything else is necessary. So given these solutions as well as many health benefits of the food, the advantages of Greek yogurt outdo the potential dropbacks of its production, defeat, outperform, outweigh. So we're comparing and contrasting pros versus cons. It's going to be outweigh. It's not defeating. It's not fighting anything. Outperform, that usually, is going to tell me that I need a certain number, but they're doing completely different things. And outdo, again, kind of like outperform. It doesn't really make sense. Number 2, which choice provides the most relevant detail? So I don't need to read the passage. This is what I call best choice questions, where they actually give you a question. My only criteria here is what they're giving me. So it's most relevant. Yeah, so I have to read a little bit. But sometimes it's like most specific, most detailed. Then, I'm not reading everything. I'm not thinking about sentence structure. I'm not thinking about grammar or anything like that. I'm just going to pick the most relevant detail. So stick with the question. Don't overthink it. That's literally the only criteria you're working off of. So let me read a little bit just to understand what's going on. So whenever it's something about relevancy, I know I'm going to look at a topic, sentence, and main idea, because that's how I'm going to determine if it's relevant. So the main environmental problem caused by the production of Greek yogurt is the creation of acid whey as a byproduct. So Greek yogurt creates acid whey, but over here I kind of know I know, again, because from the title, way to go, it's kind of like stupid, but whey is probably a good thing. So I can anticipate that he is going to contrast this statement of, Greek yogurt is bad with something else. So I can see that in sentence 3. To address the problem, disposal farmers have added blah, blah, blah. I don't really care. So they can add it to livestock feed as a protein supplement. People can make their own. So what are we talking about? Again, we're talking about the main idea is Greek yogurt and how it doesn't cause environmental problems, or it does, right? So I want to pick something relevant to that. So people can make their own Greek yogurt. That's not relevant at all, because we're not talking about people making it. We're talking about the production of Greek yogurt. So added to livestock supplement, converted into gas. So electricity production, okay, we're not really talking about that yet, right? We're just talking about, maybe some of the benefits of Greek yogurt and why it could cause some issues, right? So yeah, I could keep going. So I just saw another question about random DVR. So I don't want to get into every specific question, because again, you have to learn all the question types to know exactly what you need to read and what you don't. It takes practice, but it also takes you breaking out of your comfort zone to try not reading everything. So for the random DVR again asked, what about the reading section? So I talked about this, in my reading workshop, but it's different. It depends on your question types, right? So let me type this up just so you can kind of see too, but I'll add this to the bottom. So for reading, I still skim, but I look at important parts. So what I mean by that is I'm looking at in-depth at important places. So for the most part, I'm not going to read every sentence in depth. It's going to take forever, right? So what I'm gonna do here is so if it's a fiction passage, I'm looking out for. I'm really looking in depth. I'm only looking for general plot line, and I'm gonna look in depth when I see the conflict. Okay, so yeah, so with fiction, it's a little different. It's a little less formulaic because it's a story. But for everything else, pretty much everything else, I'm looking in depth at the thesis statement, which is at the end of intro, beginning of conclusion. And then I'm also looking at topic sentences. That way, I can kind of do it in under 30 seconds, understanding what the general flow of a paragraph is. And I just saw Jasper. Yeah, 2 is B. I didn't read it all the way. Again, I was just rushing to kind of give you a general idea. Let me see it again. I potentially eliminated it because it's talking about fuel and electricity, but it's about production. I didn't even read the other answer choices, so let me see. While sweet whey is more desirable. Okay, so again, the main idea, like I said, was the production over here. So I eliminated B at first because I was like, okay, maybe not a fuel thing, but I can always come back to it, you know. C, sweet whey is more desirable. Again, it's not about food for humans because there's nothing about food here. Greek yogurt is food, but it's more about the production, and I found that in the topic sentence. D, supplement, which provides an important, again, it's not about diet. And C and D, this is something about test theory, right? If 2 answers are very similar, which C and D are, then neither of them can be right because, you know, if 2 answers can't be right. So yeah, in this case, I'd probably go back to B. It's not the best, and it's not a great answer, but it's the best here because it's the only thing to do with production. So again, it's the most relevant. This is not that relevant because, again, it's talking more about the environmental issues and stuff, but it's the only thing good here. Sorry, I kind of rushed it. I hope you cut me some slack. I swear I know what I'm talking about. But I'm just kind of messing with you. So let me kind of do a quick example with random DVR and then ask me questions because after this, I think I might be done for today's workshop unless you guys have some more pressing questions. So let me show you how I can skim, you know, a passage in, you know, almost 30 seconds. Okay, so let's do this passage. Okay, so it's a very standard question. So like I said, thesis, a topic sentence. I'm just trying to follow. On my first go-around, I'm not trying to get into everything. What I'm trying to get into is just what is the main flow of the argument or whatever's going on, and what is the main idea. So I always read the italicized. That's important. But it says, considers the situation of women in English society. So I can anticipate it's something about women's rights. I just need to understand which side this person is on. She's probably on the side of women's rights. It's a very common SAT kind of thing. So close at hand, blah, blah, blah. So it's just introduction. I don't really care. I'm going to look here. Now we are here to consider facts. Now we must fix our eyes upon the procession of the sons of educated men. So I kind of understand that, saying, you know, let's look at men and rights, but I don't know enough, so I might read a little bit before. So it is a place to stand on by the hour of dreaming, but not now. So it's not the best. So if I'm not getting a great thesis here, then I'm going to look at this topic sentences. It's going to give me a little better idea. With these old English passages, it's a little weirder because they don't really follow the structure as well because, you know, they didn't learn all that stuff yet back in the day. But nowadays, with all these modern passages, it's very formulaic. So there they go. Our brothers who have been educated at public schools and universities, by these steps, blah, blah. So men get to do all these things, right? So I can anticipate women don't get to do all these things. So it is a solemn sight always, blah, blah, blah. But so I'm always looking for transition words. So when I skim, I'm looking for transitions because that's going to tell me there's a big difference, right? And this is one long paragraph, so it's harder for me to take that same strategy that I talked about. But I'm still skimming it. For the past 20 years, no longer a site, merely blah, blah, blah. So now women can also do the same thing, right? Because I know that but is giving me that contrast. So men can have all these cool jobs. Women can now also have all these cool jobs. We who have also looked so long at the pageant. These are just examples, right? So we who now agitate these humble pens may another such speak from the pulpit. So, later we'll have the same opportunity. Nobody will dare concentrate us, blah, blah, you laugh, blah, 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 blah. Again, but we have not come here to laugh or to talk of fashions, men's. We are here. So this is the position, right? So I found the position. We are here to ask ourselves certain questions, and they're important questions. Blah, blah, blah. The questions we have to ask and answer is, again, she still didn't answer the stupid question yet. Do we wish to join? So should we join men in getting all these cool jobs and stuff, right? And then how are we going to do that? And then you can kind of look at the conclusion. So what are these professions? Why should we make money? So again, she's still asking questions. So didn't look like she gave a firm answer. So this wasn't the best, passage to work off of. But that's just, the general strategy here. It's just a quick summary. That's all what I'm understanding is about women's rights. Can they get the same jobs as men? That's all I really care about on the first go around. And then later I'll go more in depth in the passage. Because what you traditionally do is if you try to read this whole thing in depth, you might do that, and then when you get to the questions, you end up going back anyways. So you're doing it twice. It's not worth doing that twice. I'll just do it once when the question points me back to where I need to look. So that's just some general strategy. So that's kind of what I was planning on talking about today. So if nobody has any questions, I'll leave a little time, maybe a minute or two if you have any last minute questions. Otherwise, I might sign off for today. We can do maybe the SAT, essay, math, or whatever else is interesting to you guys next week. I'm also planning on doing a cram session right before the test. Just some quick fixes, some of the most important things that you can fix in like 5 minutes. So I'm going to do that right before the March 10th test. So be sure to tune in. I'm going to do this every Wednesday at the same time. I think it's easier for me to keep it consistent. So hopefully you guys can come in. If you like it, please, just subscribe or like it so you can keep updated. And then if you can give me your email, sign up for that email newsletter, that'd be great. I can send you the notes. I can tell you when I'm going to do the other workshops and something like that. If you are maybe interested in more long-form tutoring, again, I have a full-time job. It's hard for me to do that with every single student on Reddit I just won't have time realistically. But if you're interested in more long-form tutoring, I can't do that for free, unfortunately. I'm not here to sell anything. I'm really just trying to help you guys out. But if you need that long-form tutoring, you're not getting the results that you need, then maybe you can send me a message and we can work something out. I'll have to look at my schedule because I do get a lot of students. But again, yeah, if you need the help, that's great. And I'd love to help you guys out. So I just can't do that for free with every single person. Hope you guys can understand. Need to survive, put food on the table too, right? So if no one has any questions, I think I'm going to sign off for today. So I'll wait around maybe for 30 seconds, but hopefully this is helpful for you guys. And again, leave me feedback. Is there something you guys want to talk about specifically? If you don't like the way I'm doing it, I mean, I'm just trying things out. So just tell me what you'd like to see next time. Okay, doesn't look like anyone has any questions, so I'm going to sign off. And again, we're going to do this. I'm going to do this every week, so make sure you just come back next Wednesday. I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to talk about yet. It might be the essay. I know that's kind of important, especially for some of you guys that are higher achievers. I know it's optional, but you should definitely take it. You need to get around above a 20 to be in consideration for these top tier schools. So I might talk about that next week. So yeah, if you have questions, PM me on Reddit. I'll try to answer it. Again, I'm busy, but I'll try my best to answer it. So sorry if I can't get back to you in like 5 minutes. It will take me a little time to sift through everything. People are still messaging me from that post like 2 weeks ago. So I don't mind helping you out. Just let me know. But I'm going to sign off for today, so I'll see you guys next week.